So we're almost at summer mode. We have one more bat mitzvah I'm looking forward to next week, but one of the highlights of the summer is that the Divrei Torah are from within the congregation itself. And so excited that Dr. Ben Bronheim will be our darshan this morning.
Actually, this is a topic that I knew nothing about, so I'm very humble. I wanted to just say to well, Karen and Deborah are not here, Rabbi Migdal are not, oh, they're back there. But that we all, you can't hear me? Is it better now? I have to talk. Okay, so I just wanted to congratulate Rabbi Migdal. Do you hear me now? Talk into the mic, okay. Rabbi Migdal and Karen, and we're all overjoyed. I'm speaking for everyone here, how overjoyed we are. First of all, to have you back, and to also to be able to share the simcha with you. Today I'm going to talk about something, like I said, that I knew nothing about before November. Is it getting better?
Yeah, you just have to speak into it.
Okay. What? Speak right into a mic, Bar? Okay. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about the fate of many people of the northern kingdom after its capture from the Assyrians in 722. These have become known as the lost... I'm so tall.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So these have been known as the lost 10 tribes. And the fact is that these lost 10 tribes were not lost. And the term was first stated by Josephus and the people who lived at the time of the destruction of the temple. It became a very popular idea, and it's continued to be a popular idea. And Rabbi Harris had asked me whether or not I was going to talk about the Lemba and the Chinese and the Indian and all these different groups that claim to be part of the lost 10 tribes. Oh, the Mormons also claim to be part of the lost 10 tribes. But I'm not going to talk about that. First of all, I think it's great that all these groups want to be Jewish, and that they're working hard to be Jewish, so it's very nice. But other than that, I don't really know any. It's another thing I don't know about. Okay, when I was younger, I grew up that I was that I had come from either the tribe of Judah or the tribe of Benjamin, and the lost 10 tribes were really lost, and so that meant that all of us who were born Jewish came from those two tribes, from Judah and Benjamin, and now I realize I've lost my identity, so I don't have that belief anymore. The present day evidence is that the northern tribes were able to maintain their identities. Even in the New Testament, a woman, Anna, was attributed to the tribe of Asher. So here this is like about 800 years later, and they're still talking about people coming from the other tribes. And in the book of Tobit, which is around the year 200 BCE, which is about 500 years afterwards, they also attribute him to be part of the ancestry of Naphtali. So it just is, and there's lots of others who were attributed to different tribes. So I want to share the current thinking about what happened after the fall of the Northern Kingdom and how those events influenced Judaism and the formation of the Tanakh in the following times. The Assyrians were a very, very powerful force, and they typically would attack a country or a city, and then they would take out the leadership of the leadership of the country, and and then put the leadership of another country in that country so that they can have more control over the places they dominated. And it was about 20% of the people of the country that were taken out. And that means 80% remained. And they continued to practice their religion, which I'll talk about in a moment, which is different than Judea, because they believed in other gods as well, Baal and other kinds of things like that. And so it was a lot more complicated when they joined together. Now, the biggest factor to show how the two groups merged rather than they, first of all, the area in Israel, it was much larger than the area in Judea. Judea was a pretty small country. And Jerusalem, after the war, after the Assyrians attacked, it grew from 6,000 to 30,000 people, which it grew to 30,000 people because the people from the north came to live in the south. Now, some people even believe that it was 15-fold. This is 5-fold increase. That some believe it grew to 90,000. And I'm not an archaeologist, and I don't know why some say 5-fold and some say, but it was a huge, huge amount of people who moved from the north to the south. And as a result, the south had more people from the north. If you go from 6,000 to 30,000 or 6,000 to 90,000, you had more people than were originally from Judea. And so they didn't disappear, they merged. So it turns out that any of us could have come from any of the tribes, not just from, you hear me okay? Okay. Oh, too loud. Oh, okay, so, okay. Northern pottery styles have been found in Jerusalem and major temples and have been found, and granary operating there as well. So I don't know enough about the pottery of the north versus the south, but the archaeologists say that they find in Judea pottery from the north at the time of the Assyrian conquest. And many of the names of the people at the time, like Menachem, Pekah, Gemariah, were northern names, so that they see that amongst the people living there, a lot of them were northerners. Hezekiah invited the northerners to celebrate Pesach with them. Hezekiah became king of Judah about 7 years after the Assyrian conquest. Oh, and one thing I just wanted to mention about the Assyrian conquest. Assyria conquered everybody that they ever fought against except one place, Jerusalem. They didn't lose to Jerusalem, but they weren't able to conquer Jerusalem, possibly because they had their own water supply, they built walls up and whatever else, and they eventually gave up. Otherwise, they would have also destroyed the Judea as well. There was a problem. The problem was that because the north believed in more gods and had their own temples, they had temples outside of Jerusalem that they built and such, it amplified the need for a single unifying faith and a greater commitment to Yahweh. So this is around the time that the Torah was written. I know some people think it was written at Sinai, but this is the time that it was written. And so when it was written, a lot of the stories in the Torah were there to deal with the merging of the two groups. For example, the stories about the golden calf are there to say to the northerners who were there, this is an abomination. And it was a way of trying to create a group that only believed in one God. There's other things that they did. There were some compromises in writing the Tanakh to try to satisfy both groups of people. For example, I've always wondered about the stories about David, that here David was the person that we revere so much as David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayam, and I almost went into Hebrew, but anyway, and it turns out that, yes, the stories about David and Goliath, that God choosing David, all those things were included. But there's a lot of horrible, horrible stories about David included. And people believe now that they were included in there in order to compromise between the North and the South, in order to get the northern people to be satisfied, because the Northerners thought that David was an abomination. They obviously split off from David and Solomon. After Solomon, they split off. And so it was a way of joining the two different groups. The North fueled the rebirth of Judaism from the regional kingdom. One thing I was going to say about this was, on Tisha B'Av, when we mourn the loss of the two temples, which were tragedies, in a way it's a paradox, because it is also the beginning of the creation of modern Judaism, rabbinic Judaism. And so if the temples weren't destroyed, we wouldn't have the religion we have now, we wouldn't have the prayers we have, we wouldn't have anything that we have now. So that sometimes something good comes out of something horrible. And the same thing happened with the Assyrian conquest of the north. That what happened was that the two merged together and formed closer to what we call modern Judaism. Because when you look at the Tanakh and whatever is written there, it was created by a merger of the two. And the north, some people stayed in the north, and they were known as Samaritans or Sumerians. And Ezra and Nehemiah were very much against the Samaritans or Sumerians. In fact, they were against the intermarriage of Sumerians with Judah, with the people of Judah. And they didn't want to recognize it. And so, but what people say now is that there was a great deal of intermarriage between the two groups, because you live together in a small area, you're going to intermarry. And so there's other stories which I don't understand exactly. Like some people believe that Abraham was the ancestor of the south, Jacob was Yaakov was from the north, and that a lot of the stories that came together in Bereshit are ways of joining. Well, even having the Yaakov had 12 sons, and they formed the tribes. It was a way of joining tribes that probably existed already, and to make them together, to give them a sense of history of belonging together. And so a lot of Bereshit was there to enhance the role. So I think what you can get from this talk, which is that the next time you hear something about the lost 10 tribes, they weren't lost. And the thing is that there's a lot of 2 years ago I talked about the Hyksos, and that Joseph was probably a Hyksos, and if any of you are interested in hearing more about that, you can ask me about it in Kiddush. But it's the same kind of idea. We don't know if that's true, but the Hyksos wore multicolored coats, and they were shepherds, and so there was a lot of things it makes sense that Joseph was Hyksos. And so there's so much that we don't know, and so much that we have to be humble about. And so this is just another example of something to be humble about. Okay, Shabbat Shalom.